that is a real important question. And you have to understand, for example, let's say you're working with people in product, if you're a product company, right? Or even be it IT, what have you. You have to understand that they may have a different remit than you have. So in the case of in a product company, in the CTO org, or maybe it's platform engineering, whatever it might be, they are on a timeline to try to get stuff out to create more opportunity and revenue for the business, right? And so you need to understand that that in many cases, they're the ones driving the car, right? And you're in the pit crew. And so your job is to actually enable and protect, but the reality is they're, in many times, they're the ones who are going to win the race. So you just have to understand where your role is. Now listen, I don't know if you know anything about Indy cars or racing, it's kind of interesting, the pit crew, on elite pit crew will be under 3 seconds, about 20 people, give or take, will run out in the field and come back, and they're out there for 2.5 to 3 seconds, twice in a race. Pretty minimal amount of time in a whole race, but it's probably one of the top 3 most important things in winning, actually, right? So security has a really important role, but it's a supporting role. If we don't know that and we get confused and think that we're driving the car or that we are the car, things will get out of sync. You will end up breaking trust with people. So really understanding what is the value at risk, what's being created, what's the opportunity. Then we can talk about, okay, what are the plausible losses? Once we have an understanding of that and they feel like they're heard, you can start getting into conversations about, again, what are the trade-offs we're going to make here? If we're going to allow this piece of potentially risky stuff get through, well, what does that mean? Maybe that is the right trade-off, given what's at risk. So, sorry, that was kind of a long answer, but I think it's a really important one. And it really requires us to get out from behind our monitor and behind our concept of who we are and really try to understand the people who are creating value. This is really important I think, for security folks to understand. It's really important in terms of the process you use to make decisions. Listen, you can have a great outcome and have made a horrible decision. You decided to drive home really drunk and you actually made it home. Well, that was actually a horrible decision, right? And you could say playing the lottery is a horrible decision. So I had an experience with a company where I found out that they had let's just say one of the largest regulated data exposures in history. It was really, really awful. And my first thing to do was really to transfer that risk away from the company. I invested in more cyber insurance right away, significantly. And management didn't understand that. They did not like that. They thought I should have spent that money on doing hiring. By the way, it's a relatively trivial amount of money. I still ended up doing hiring, but they thought that was, I said, this is really the best return on investment we could make right now, given the state of risk. Because the reality is, first of all, you have to, you invest in controls. Maybe you're partnering with a vendor. You have to hire people. It takes time for that to burn in. So you have a race condition, right? And again, if you look at your objective as this goes to another point, point of view. Your objective really is trying to make the business resilient to plausible future loss, right? Not perfectly secure, but resilient, able to, on an ongoing basis, fulfill your commitment to your stakeholders, even while under duress. Maybe you're under multiple serial duress, bad guys are attacking you. You're still able to fulfill your commitment to your stakeholders. Be resilient. So I operate from that, I've operated from that perspective for over 20 years, and this is maybe 15 years ago, and I opted to buy more insurance, which was unheard of from a CISO. Again, management, it wasn't disastrous for me. They didn't appreciate it. That's okay. I left later. They subsequently had a couple of breaches, and they were very thankful for having more insurance. So again, it's really, I just want to encourage security folks, it's really about how do you think? Do you have a rational or ratio base? Do you have a rational basis for your decisions, right? Again, if you're always going to base your decisions on whether someone in power is happy, I'll say that you're probably in the long run going to be doing a disservice, really, to yourself and to the world. I've likened security as like a tribe in the Amazon that's somehow has been able to, basically keep out of the observation of modernity. Somehow they've been able to be a fiefdom unto themselves and not adopt standard practices like of math and science and other things. They've just been very insular, and that really shows itself in risk management. So if there's one thing I would really like to see security as a practice start doing, is getting much more concrete about understanding the business's value at risk. That goes back to my story earlier, understanding, when I say value at risk, that includes opportunity loss. What is it that this business is trying to get done? What do they do as a business? Because you might have to make trade-offs, because listen, if we don't do this thing and we wait 6 months because we have to go fix all this infrastructure, well, that might actually in the long run be worse for the business. So how can we start focusing on value at risk? Understanding opportunity loss versus pure cash loss versus market loss, starting to understand penalties better and their long tail, really getting clear about what risk management it really is as a discipline, and ultimately realizing that risk management is really about how you make decisions, how you structure decisions, again, for the benefit of the business and depending on the nature of your business, your critical infrastructure, for the benefit of society more broadly.